Welcome everyone, it's Father Dave here in the kitchen and not in the library right now because our video is going to be about cooking. So it's going to be for our diocesan fundraiser for Catholic Social Services, which we're calling Rectory Set Cook. And I'm going to be cooking slumgullion stew from the old movie It Happened on Fifth Avenue. So you're going to watch the movie, not a movie, our little video, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. Maybe you'll decide even to try making some slumgullion yourself. But you're able to vote. There's going to be other priests doing other recipes, and you can vote for which one is your favorite by making a $10 donation or more to Catholic Social Services. And you can do that by simply going on our diocesan website, thedioceseofscranton.org, going to the little icon about the Rectory Set Cook, and you can make your donation there. So hopefully you'll enjoy mine and all the other videos and presentations by the various priests of the diocese. I think even the bishop is going to be in on it. So God bless, and please join us in the kitchen with Father Dave. And so we're basing this cooking project on a movie called It Happened on Fifth Avenue. We're going to be talking about the movie as we do the cooking. I'm wearing this fancy old flannel shirt to try and get into the mood because the people in the movie mostly are people who are poor and displaced, people who are looking for housing, and they find it in an empty mansion belonging to Michael O'Connor, the second richest man in the world. But we're going to begin by chopping up our onion. It's going to be our first ingredient in slumgullion stew, and I have a box of Band-Aids ready just in case because I got a sharp knife. We'll see how it goes. I don't do a whole lot of cooking or chopping. I kind of cheat. I take the whole outside layer off. You might have a better way of doing that. And we're going to cut up our onion. So Michael J. O'Connor has his two houses where he lives, his mansion in New York City on Fifth Avenue and a plantation down in Virginia. And he lives for one in New York during the warm season in New York, and then he goes down to Virginia for the winter. What he doesn't know, there's another guy named Mac McKeever who is living in the mansion when Mike is down in Virginia, and he lives in Virginia when Mike is up in New York. So we're going to take some olive oil, and we're going to put it on medium heat. Just going to kind of cover the bottom of the pan. And we're going to put on our onions. So Mac McKeever likes to pretend that he's actually the millionaire Michael J. O'Connor, and he ends up meeting a veteran who's just been evicted from his hotel owned by Michael J. O'Connor, the second richest man in the world, and Mac invites his ex-GI to come and live with him in the mansion, and he accepts, imagining that it's actually the millionaire who owns the home. Well, we have our cubed steak that we're going to put in with the onion and our oil. Whoops. There we go. And we're going to stir that around a little bit. And we're going to do some pepper and some salt. Okay, we're going to let that cook a little bit. But it doesn't stop there because Jim has other friends who are also looking for housing. They're also vets who are home from the war, and they end up running into each other, and Jim convinces Mac to let these others join them in the mansion. So a couple husband and wives with some kids, they all join in their place there in the mansion with Mac. So we're going to cut up our carrots. They're going to be going in next. Part of the idea of slumgullion stew is that really anything can go in. Whatever you have in the fridge, what you got can go in the pot. So any kind of leftovers or things can go on in there. We'll just show you the ingredients that we have here. So there we have it. We have our carrots all cut. And when our beef cubes are ready, they're going to go on in there. We're also going to need some potatoes, and so we're going to have about 3 or 4 red potatoes that are going to be also going in. I like to do it with the skin on. So, in the meantime, with all these people living in the mansion there in New York, Trudy, who is Mike O'Connor's daughter, decides she's going to leave school and go home to her house in New York City, to the mansion, where she finds Mac and Jim and the others all together living in her house. And she overhears them talking about their situation of looking for housing and being in need. And so she pretends to be a runaway, and she joins this homeless group of people living in her father's mansion. And so she, during this time, starts to fall for Jim, and he starts to fall for her. In the meantime, we have to do some stirring of our cubed meat and our onions and our oil. It's starting to get there. I don't think it takes too long. I guess once they're totally browned, it'll be ready to mix in with some of the vegetables and other things we have. Well, Trudy and Jim start to think about marriage, and so Trudy thinks she wants to invite her parents to meet Jim. And so she invites her mother Mary and her dad Mike, who are both millionaires, although they're separated, to come and live in the mansion with them, pretending also to be people who are in need of housing, people who are down and out. And so they do come and join in this very interesting group of people in the mansion. Okay, well, our beef cubes are nicely getting done, and we're going to now move them into our pot on low heat, and we're going to begin to add some of the veggies and other ingredients that are going to go into our slumgullion stew. Well, Mike and Mary end up, like all the others living in the mansion under the direction of Mac, taking on different chores. And as they do that, Mary becomes the cook. And guess what she bakes? The first dish she bakes is slumgullion stew. It's something that when she and Mike were young and poor, newlywed couples, it's one of the dishes she used to make. And it starts to bring back all those memories of years gone by when in a very simple life, things seemed to have much more meaning and value than later on when they became millionaires. So here goes our carrots on into the pot. Well, at least most of them did. Okay. And then we're going to go for our potatoes. Here we are with our red potatoes. We have a good amount of those, and they're going to be going here into the pot. So through a big meal and a couple of holidays, because some of this movie takes place during Christmas and then New Year's, the group of people all together start to reminisce about all the different things they experienced, the good things they experienced in life, all the different things that were so important to them. And for Mike and Mary, they start to feel the old flame coming back, and they're starting to decide to get back together. And it's all with that beginning of the love between Trudy and Jim, and this reminder that comes from their slumgullion stew. So we're going to stir this around a little bit, and we're going to get ready to add a few. We're going to be using some canned veggies, tomatoes, and a very interesting ingredient, black-eyed peas. The recipe calls for that. If you go online, you can find different recipes for slumgullion stew. because I don't think there's any one way to make it. I think they kind of invented the idea for the movie. We're going to add some Italian seasoning. So I have a 1/8 spoon. I think we're just going to do it right over here, and it might get a little bit more than that, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, that will help. Okay. So Jim and his army buddies get a couple hundred GIs together, and they decide to buy an old army fort that's near New York. And they don't realize it, but Mike O'Connor in the background is also bidding on that property. And he ends up buying it. And his wife and daughter find out that they kind of outbidded the GIs, and so they're kind of upset, and they're going to go back to New York. Not to New York, but they're going to go back to Florida, where Mary had just come from to meet Jim. So we're going to put some diced tomatoes and corn and black-eyed peas. We're going to go in our pot of slumgullion stew here in 1 second. All right. Make sure the lids stay on. Well, Mike feels a little ashamed of himself for going back to his old business ways so quickly, and so he decides to do something very charitable, and that is to reveal who he really is to the GIs and some of the others, not all of them, and he's going to hand over that property of the fort that he bought to be housing for all of the GIs. And so that's part of the real feel-good part of the movie. And it's also going to be something that's going to really help his relationship with his wife, Mary, because they're going to get married again, and his daughter, and of course his son-in-law, soon to be. Well, now we're going to put in some corn and our black-eyed peas. I guess the black-eyed peas will be a little easier because it has a pull tab on the top of the can. All right. Here goes 1. And 2. All right. To tell you the truth, I never really had black-eyed peas, but they look interesting. They don't look really like a pea, but I can see where I get the idea of them having the black eye, because there is a kind of a spot on the side of the pea. Now, as we get to this part of the movie, it's coming time when they're going to need it to leave because they've been discovered by the police. 2 officers who keep an eye on the house who decide not to turn them in, but to let them stay until after New Year's with a promise from everybody gathered inside that they would go once they got through the New Year's Eve celebration. And Mac never finds out the real identity of Mike and Mary and Trudy, but they all depart as great friends. And Mike decides that even though for some years our friend Mr. McKeever has been coming into the mansion through a hole in the fence, Mike decides that from now on he's going to be able to come in through the front door. So our last ingredients that are going to go in is going to be some pasta. It's going to cook for the last half hour. So this cooks for about 2 hours. And we're also going to add some beef broth for some real nice flavor. Okay, well, we've been cooking for a while now, and here is our pasta. And we're going to add this to our pot of slumgullion stew. All right. So we're going to try this in just a minute, or at least I'm going to. It's looking pretty good. So we're going to find out how does it really taste. Here, take a little bit of a look, if you can see in there what the stew looks like. I have my trusty spoon here. Okay, try to get a little bit of the meat and the veggies on there. Very good. So, if you're looking for something to do, how about a feel-good movie like it happened on Fifth Avenue, and some real comfort food like some Gullion stew? Get together with some family, some friends or neighbors, and just maybe talk about those things from the old days that were very simple but had a lot of meaning and value to us, and how maybe we can recognize that in all the things we have and have today. And may God bless you with some peace and joy and happiness, and maybe even a little slumgullion stew, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.